Billionaire-turned-politician Clive Palmer has sensationally said he would preference the Greens over both the Coalition and Labour, as he took a swipe at the ABC over its election coverage. Billionaire miner Clive Palmer has defended his enormous spending campaign for the next election and revealed he would favour the Greens over the Coalition and Labour in terms of preferences. The United Australia Party chairman was grilled by journalists at the National Press Club on Thursday afternoon over his party's preference flows at the next election. Mr. Palmer said given the mountain of debt accumulated by previous Labour and Liberal governments, he would preference all of their candidates last in the House of Representatives. But sensationally, he said he preferred the Greens over the major parties, while taking a swipe at the ABC for its lack of coverage of the UAP. Stream more election news live and on demand with Flash. 25+ news channels in one place. New to Flash? Try 1 month free. Offer ends the 31st of October 2022. Clive Palmer has identified growing national debt as the UAP's principal economic issue, as he said he would preference the Greens over Labour and the Liberals. Picture, NCA Newswire, a Gary Ramage. From my personal perspective, I think I'll put the Greens ahead of Liberal and Labour because they haven't been in government and they haven't been responsible for this debt, Mr. Palmer said. Like the ABC, I'd be putting the Greens ahead of Liberal and Labour. Mr. Palmer has so far plunged more than $30 million into the federal election, as his party nominates candidates for all lower house electorates, as well as Senate spots. He has been accused of attempting to buy the election, but Mr. Palmer said despite his enormous election war chest, he still had less coverage than the major parties, and hit out again at the ABC. I don't think we do heavily outspend our opponents. If you look at the last election, it was pretty similar, he said. Between now and the election, we'll spend about $40 million because we don't get any coverage on the ABC. Unfortunately, we don't get many interviews there, and we don't get general coverage by news generally. If you balance the number of articles against the number of ads, you'd find that our ideas are less prominent than the traditional parties. Mr. Palmer's claim of unfair coverage from the national broadcaster comes after the ABC chose not to broadcast his address live, instead opting for a delayed airing later in the day. The maverick politician rejected any suggestion his investment had a negative impact on the electoral process, instead arguing his cash splash allowed for a diversity of ideas. We do believe in democracy, and democracy means a diversity of ideas, he continued. What matters is not how much money you spend, it's what your solutions are. I've put forward solutions that are novel and are new. Mr. Palmer attacked the government for rising debt brought upon by programs such as JobKeeper, which have successfully insulated the Australian economy from extended recession and growing unemployment. Instead, he suggested Australia enforce a 15% licence on iron ore exports, which he claimed could dissolve all national debt in 20 years. He also proposed that the housing loan rate be frozen at 3% for the next 5 years to prevent a catastrophic national mortgage default crisis.